We are not going to talk about how to get rich. Honestly, that is the easy part. While the internet is flooded with fake gurus trying to sell you a $1,000 course on how to get wealthy overnight with the latest crypto fraud or dropshipping scheme, they are deliberately ignoring the hardest part of the game. We are going to talk about how to not be poor. Most people out there think poverty is just a lack of money. They think it is a temporary state, just a low number in a checking account that can be fixed with a lucky break. They are completely, fundamentally wrong. Poverty is not a number. Poverty is a gravitational force. It is a highly engineered trap. It is a closed-loop system designed from the ground up to keep you inside, spinning your wheels, generating profits for someone else until you run out of energy and die. I call this the physics of poverty. If you want to understand why you are stuck, you have to stop looking at your bank app and start understanding rocket science. When a rocket tries to leave the Earth, it doesn't just casually float into space. It has to violently fight against the invisible force of gravity. To reach orbit, it must hit a very specific, non-negotiable speed. In physics, we call this escape velocity. If that rocket uses 99% of the massive amount of fuel required, but it does not hit that exact, specific speed, do you know what happens? It does not get 99% of the way to the moon and just hang out there. It gets pulled back by gravity. It falls all the way back to Earth, and it crashes. This exact physics equation is what happens to the working class every single day. You grind at your job. You work hard. You save a little bit of money. You try to climb your way out of the hole. You get halfway up the wall, and then, inevitably, life happens. Your car transmission blows out. You get sick and miss 3 days of wages. The landlord raises the rent. Gravity kicks in, and because you did not reach that critical escape velocity, you fall all the way back to the absolute bottom. But it is actually worse than that. You fall lower than before because now you are discouraged. Now you are mentally exhausted. Now you have less fuel in your tank. This is exactly why the classic advice of just work a little bit harder is a complete mathematical lie. In the physics of poverty, linear effort produces zero results. You need exponential effort to break the gravitational pull. You need to wake up and understand that the system is rigged against you, not because of some shadowy basement conspiracy, but because of pure cold mathematics. Poverty is insanely expensive. When you are poor, every single thing you touch costs more. You cannot afford to buy your groceries in bulk, so you pay a massive markup on the unit price for food. You cannot afford a good pair of boots, so you buy the cheap plastic boots that break every single winter. You cannot afford decent preventative dental care, so you wait in pain until the tooth completely rots, and suddenly you are paying thousands for an emergency root canal. This concept is famously known as the Vimes-Boots theory of socioeconomic unfairness. The system actively charges you a penalty just for being poor. It hits you with late fees. It hits you with $35 overdraft fees when you run out of cash. It locks you into predatory sky-high interest rates on loans. Because a computer decided you are a risk. You are essentially running a marathon with a 100-pound backpack strapped to your shoulders, while the wealthy are running on a downhill track with the wind at their backs. But here is the most dangerous, unspoken part of this entire system. Poverty is not just an external environmental factor. It is an internal biological one. When you are trapped in this loop for too long, it literally changes the physical structure of your brain. It rewires your neural pathways. It traps your nervous system in a constant, unending state of fight or flight. Your IQ literally drops. You completely lose the ability to plan for 10 years from now because your brain is forcing you to worry about surviving the next 10 minutes. You become a reactive creature, not a proactive one. This is the poverty loop in its purest form. Low income leads to chronic stress. That stress fries your decision-making abilities, leading to bad financial decisions. Those bad decisions ensure that you acquire zero assets. And having zero assets guarantees that you remain stuck with a low income. Round and round the hamster wheel goes, a perfectly designed vicious circle. But there is a way out. The laws of physics can be broken if you can generate enough force. In this video, we are going to completely reverse engineer this trap. We are going to look under the hood at the 5 specific chains that are actively holding you down right now. We are going to expose the scarcity tax that is draining your brain power. We are going to dissect the dopamine trap that is stealing your cash. We will tear down the linear income fraud that is wasting your precious time. And finally, I am going to show you exactly how to build your own engine. I will show you how to generate the escape velocity required to leave the atmosphere of poverty forever. Once you break orbit, the game flips. The friction disappears. The silence comes, and you can finally fly. But first, we have to survive the launch sequence. Let's begin the countdown. Let us enter the first loop. I call this the scarcity tax. Most people casually assume that if you just hand a poor person a pile of money, all their problems vanish. But the statistics tell a completely different, darker story. When you give a lottery winner millions of dollars, they are almost statistically guaranteed to be broke again within 3 to 5 years. Why does this happen? Because poverty is not just a lack of cash, it is a critical lack of cognitive bandwidth. There was a massive, highly publicized study done by Senthil Mullainathan at Harvard University. He discovered something terrifying. He found that when your mind is entirely consumed by financial stress, when you are laying awake at night worrying about how to pay the rent, or how you are going to afford to fix your car so you don't lose your job, your effective IQ drops by 13 points. 13 points. To put that into perspective, that is the exact same cognitive decline as going without sleep for 24 straight hours. It is the equivalent of trying to navigate your life as a functional alcoholic. This means that when you are financially broke, you are literally operating a damaged processor. You are trying to solve complex, long-term strategic problems with a brain that is locked in pure survival mode. You cannot see the future because you are too busy aggressively fighting the present. This is the scarcity trap. When your mental bandwidth is throttled to zero, you make terrible decisions. You walk into a predatory strip mall lender and take out a payday loan with a 400% interest rate, just because you need cash to survive until Friday. You buy the cheap, toxic, processed fast food because it is fast and you are too exhausted to cook. You are not stupid. You are just exhausted, and the massive corporate systems around you know this. They exploit this every single day. Let me explain the Vimes boots theory in brutal detail. Imagine a rich man. He has capital. He can afford to buy a premium pair of high-quality, handcrafted leather boots for $50. Those boots are built to last, and they will comfortably serve him for 10 full years. His true cost is just $5 a year. Now look at the poor man. He cannot afford the $50 upfront cost. He only has $10 to his name, so he is forced to buy a cheap, mass-produced pair of boots for $10. But because they are cheap, the soles crack, the water gets in, and they completely fall apart after just one winter. So next year, he has to scrape together another $10 to buy another cheap pair. And the year after that. Over the span of 10 years, the poor man has spent $100 on boots. The rich man only spent $50. The poor man spent double the money, and to make it worse, his feet were wet and freezing the entire time. This is the brutal mathematics of being broke. You buy the small single roll of toilet paper because you can't afford the 30-pack at Costco, meaning you pay triple the price per sheet. The system constantly charges you a premium for your lack of capital. So how do we break this first loop? How do we stop the financial bleeding? You have to build a buffer. Your absolute first financial goal in life is not to get rich. It is not to buy a house. It is not to start day trading the stock market. Your one and only goal right now is to save $1,000, or at the very least, $500. Put it in a separate, hard-to-reach account and do not touch it. Listen closely. This money is not for spending. This money is for buying back your brain. When you have a cash buffer, the car breaking down stops being a life-ruining disaster and simply becomes an annoying inconvenience. When you have a buffer, you don't have to sign a deal with the devil for a payday loan. You stop paying the scarcity tax. You stop reacting to emergencies with a panicked brain, and you start actually managing your life. That $1,000 buys you something infinitely more valuable than gold. It buys you cognitive bandwidth. It restores your lost 13 IQ points. It allows your nervous system to calm down so you can finally sleep through the night. It allows you to lift your head up from the dirt and actually look at the horizon. Most people try to jump straight to the sexy stuff, like investing. They skip this foundational step. They are trying to build a massive skyscraper on top of a muddy swamp. You have to drain the swamp first. You must build the buffer. You must figure out how to buy the boots that last 10 years. This requires absolute sacrifice. It requires pain. For a few months, you might have to live like a monk, but you are doing it for a profound reason. You are buying your permanent freedom from the scarcity tax. Now we enter the second loop. This is the most emotional and psychological trap of them all. I call it the dopamine trap. You have all heard the arrogant criticisms from people on the outside looking in. They say things like, "If you are so poor, why do you have the newest iPhone?" Why are you wearing $300 sneakers? Why are you ordering DoorDash when you have rice and beans in the pantry? It is very easy to judge people from the outside, but let us look at the actual biology of what is happening. When you are trapped in the poverty loop, your daily existence is painful. Your cortisol levels, the hormone responsible for stress and anxiety, are constantly pinned to the red line. You feel small. You feel invisible to society. Your brain is literally screaming in the dark for any kind of relief. It is begging for a win. So when you walk into a store and swipe your card for that brand new pair of shoes, or that designer handbag, or even a nice dinner out, your brain releases a massive euphoric hit of dopamine. For just a few minutes, the pain of your reality goes away. For a few minutes, you feel successful. You feel like you actually matter in the hierarchy of the world. You have to understand, this is not spending. This is self-medication. You are using consumerism as a chemical anesthetic to numb the pain of your existence. But here is the fatal trap. The relief is temporary, but the debt is permanent. The dopamine rush completely fades in 20 minutes, but the credit card bill at 24% interest is going to haunt you for 20 years. This highlights the fundamental, glaring difference between how the rich and the poor view money. The poor view money as a tool to buy immediate pleasure. The rich view money as a tool to buy permanent freedom. When a poor person gets a $500 bonus, their immediate thought is, what lifestyle upgrade can I buy with this? When a wealthy person gets $500, their immediate thought is, where can I invest this so it multiplies? We call this the war between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money into your pocket without your physical effort. A liability aggressively takes money out of your pocket. If you buy a designer purse, that is a liability. It loses half its value the exact second you carry it out the glass doors of the store. If you buy a share of an index fund, that is an asset. It goes to work for you while you sleep. Most people stuck in the low-income trap are absolutely drowning in a sea of liabilities. They finance the nice car they can't afford. They buy the flashy clothes to impress people they don't even like. They rack up 50 monthly subscriptions to streaming services and apps. They look incredibly rich on Instagram, but behind the scenes, they are bleeding wealth every single day. They are actively feeding the dopamine monster, but they are completely starving their future self. So how do we break this addiction? How do we detox from the matrix? You need to initiate monk mode. This is a highly focused period of radical, ruthless elimination. It is not a permanent lifestyle. It is a temporary tactical reset for your brain's hijacked reward system. For the next 6 months, you cut everything. You cancel Netflix. You stop eating at restaurants. You stop buying clothes. You drink free tap water instead of buying soda or energy drinks. You walk or take the bus instead of ordering an Uber. You completely strip your life down to the absolute bare, primitive essentials: cheap food, basic shelter, and cheap transport. It is going to be incredibly boring. It is going to be physically and mentally hard. Your friends might laugh at you and call you cheap, but you have to look in the mirror and tell yourself, I am not poor. I am in training. When you forcefully stop getting your daily dopamine hits from handing your money to massive corporations, your brain will be forced to rewire itself. Over time, you will start to find genuine pleasure in watching your bank account grow. You will literally start to get high on the feeling of saving money, and that is a completely different kind of dopamine. That is the dopamine of control, of power. Once you realize deep in your soul that you do not need the brand new phone to be happy, you become incredibly dangerous to the system. You become truly free because the consumer machine can no longer manipulate you with shiny objects. You have broken the addiction. Now we move to the third loop. This is the one that keeps you exhausted and completely out of time. I call this the linear income trap. From the time we are children, we are heavily programmed with a very simple, very dangerous equation for life. Time equals money. The system teaches you that if you want to make more money, you simply have to work more hours. So you go get a second job. You beg your boss for overtime. You drive for Uber on the weekends until your eyes bleed. But there is a fatal, unavoidable mathematical flaw in this equation. Your time is strictly finite. You only get 24 hours in a day, and biology demands that you spend at least 6 to 8 of those hours sleeping. This means that if you trade time for money, your income has a hard mathematical cap. There is an absolute ceiling you can never, ever break through, no matter how hard you hustle. But your expenses, your rent, your groceries, your medical bills, those have no cap whatsoever. This brings us to the silent, invisible killer of the American working class: inflation. Inflation is a hidden tax that is aggressively levied on people who sell their time, When the government decides to print trillions of dollars, the cost of everything goes up. The price of bread surges. The price of gas doubles. But do your hourly wages go up at the same speed? Absolutely not. In economics, wages are what we call sticky. Your boss is going to wait a year, maybe 2 full years, before throwing you a pathetic 3% cost of living raise. But by the time that raise hits your paycheck, inflation has already silently eaten 8% of your purchasing power. You are literally running up a down escalator, and the escalator is moving twice as fast as you can run. So what do? You work harder. You sell even more of your hours. You miss your kids' birthdays. You completely destroy your physical and mental health. And at the end of the year, despite working yourself to the bone, you look at your accounts and realize you are actually poorer than when you started. This is the exact definition of insanity. You cannot win a rigged game by being a good boy and playing by the rules. You have to change the game entirely. You have to stop selling your finite time and start selling your scalable value. How exactly do you do this? You build what is called a skill stack. Most people fall into the trap of trying to be the absolute best in the world at one specific thing. They want to be the best accountant in the city or the best graphic designer. But being the top 1% in a single field is brutally hard and highly competitive. The actual secret to wealth is to become just pretty good at 2 or 3 completely unrelated skills, and then combine them into something rare. Look at Scott Adams, the creator of the massive comic strip Dilbert. He openly admits he was not the greatest artist in the world. He was not the funniest writer alive. And he certainly wasn't the most experienced corporate businessman. But he was slightly above average at all 3 of those things. And when he stacked his decent drawing with his decent humor, with his corporate knowledge, he created a completely unique product. He became exponential. If you are a low-income worker right now, do not just go get a second low-paying job flipping burgers or driving packages. That is just pouring more water into a bucket with a hole in it. That is just more linear income. Instead, use that free time during your monk mode phase to learn a second, high-leverage skill. If you are swinging a hammer as a construction worker, spend your evenings learning how to do sales and marketing. Suddenly, you are not just a disposable laborer. You are a contractor who knows how to close high-ticket deals. If you are waiting tables at a restaurant, go on YouTube and learn the psychology of copywriting. Now, you aren't just carrying plates of food. You are consulting for restaurants, designing high-converting menus that push high-margin items. You must become a double threat. When you strategically stack skills, you completely detach your income potential from the hours on a clock. You become incredibly hard to replace. You transform yourself from a disposable commodity into a high-value asset. The free market does not pay you for how hard you sweat. It pays you for how rare you are. If your job can be learned by a teenager or automated by a robot in a week, you will be poor forever. You must build an unbreachable moat around your earning power, and that moat is your unique skill stack. Now we must confront the 4th loop. Out of everything we have discussed, this is fundamentally the hardest chain to break because it involves the people you love. I call this social gravity. There is a famous, heavily researched saying in psychology, you are the exact average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your 5 best friends are constantly broke, I guarantee you will be the 6th. If your 5 best friends are sitting around constantly complaining about the economy and blaming the government, you will be the 6th. If your 5 best friends have zero ambition to improve their lives, you will be the 6th. Why is this a scientific fact? Because human beings are basically mimicking machines. We have a complex system in our brains called mirror neurons. These neurons literally force us to subconsciously copy the behavior, the language, the daily habits, and the core mindset of the tribe we are surrounded by. If you are desperately trying to escape poverty, but you are hanging out with a tribe of people who have completely accepted poverty as their identity, you are fighting a war you cannot win. This brings us to the famous crab bucket effect. If you are walking on the beach and you put one single crab into a bucket, it will easily reach up, grab the rim, and crawl its way to freedom. But if you put 10 crabs into that exact same bucket, and one of them attempts to climb out, a terrifying thing happens. The other 9 crabs will literally reach up, grab its legs, and violently pull it back down into the pile. They do not do this because they are evil, malicious creatures. Human beings do this because your sudden ambition makes them feel incredibly unsafe. Your attempt to escape perfectly highlights their own choice to remain imprisoned. When you decide to initiate monk mode, when you stop going to the bar to save money, when you start spending your weekends learning new high-income skills, your old friend group is going to notice. And they are not going to applaud you. They are going to subconsciously attack you. They will try to drag you back. They will say things like, "Why are you grinding so hard? Just relax and have a drink, man." They will say, "Oh, so you think you're better than us now?" They will say, "The whole system is rigged by Wall Street anyway, why are you even bothering?" Listen to me very closely. That is the exact sound of social gravity. That is the sound of the crabs in the bucket grabbing your ankles and pulling you back down into the mud. If you listen to them, if you give in to the peer pressure to stay comfortable, you will stay in that bucket until you die. You must understand that poverty is very often a culture. It is a shared, comfortable narrative of victimhood. The story goes, the government is corrupt, the rich are all evil, the system is rigged, and I just have terrible luck. Believing this story is incredibly comforting because it completely absolves you of any personal responsibility to fix your life, but it guarantees that you stay broke. So how do you break this invisible loop? You must practice ruthless isolation. I am not telling you to be cruel to your family or to curse out your childhood friends, but you absolutely must protect your mind like it is a fortress. You cannot afford to sit around for 3 hours a day listening to someone complain about how unfair their life is. That energy is literal poison to your future. You need to find a new tribe. Now, you might be sitting there saying, "But I am poor right now. Successful, wealthy people do not want to hang out with me." And you are completely right. You cannot just walk into a high-end country club and demand a mentor. But you live in the greatest era in human history, the age of the internet. You have the ability to find virtual mentors. You can spend 3 hours a day hanging out with Charlie Munger. You can spend your evenings with Albert Einstein. You can spend your commute listening to the greatest, most ruthless minds in the history of capitalism. Read their books. Watch their long-form interviews. Listen to their podcasts. Let the voices of extreme success completely drown out the toxic noise of your immediate environment. When you sit down and read a detailed biography of a self-made billionaire, you are literally downloading their mental operating system straight into your own brain. You are strategically hacking your own mirror neurons. You are making a conscious choice to become the average of the legendary authors you read, rather than the average of the unmotivated people who happen to live on your street. This is exactly how you escape the gravitational pull of your zip code. You build a brand new wealthy neighborhood inside your own mind. And finally, we arrive at the fifth and ultimate loop. This is the core engine of wealth. I call this the compound void. Albert Einstein, one of the smartest human beings to ever live, famously stated, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." If you are currently trapped in the poverty loop, the brutal reality is that you are on the wrong side of this massive mathematical equation. You are the one paying the compound interest. You are carrying credit card debt at a suffocating 20 to 25% interest rate. You are financing depreciating cars. You are drowning in student loans. The mathematics of the universe are actively working against you every single second of the day. Every single morning when you wake up, you are mathematically poorer than you were the night before, even if you didn't spend a single dime while you were asleep. You are frantically paddling a tiny boat upstream, and the current is 1,000 times stronger than your arms. The wealthy are standing on the opposite side of the river. They earn compound interest. They have their capital parked in the S&P 500 index. They own cash-flowing real estate. They own equity in profitable businesses. Every single day they wake up, they are mathematically richer than they were the night before, even if they slept for 14 hours and did absolutely nothing. This is the unstoppable snowball effect of capital. If you truly want to escape low income, you must stop being the victim who pays interest, and you must become the architect who earns it. You must cross the line. How do you execute this? You need to strictly follow the 3 definitive stages of escape. Stage 1 is survival. This is where you violently stop the bleeding. You cut your daily expenses down to the absolute bone. You use the cash you saved during your monk mode isolation to aggressively hunt down and pay off your high-interest consumer debt. You take a stake and you kill the vampire that has been quietly sucking the blood out of your paycheck for years. Stage 2 is accumulation. Once the bad debt is dead, this is where you start buying assets. And let me be clear. I do not mean buying a primary residence house, and I definitely do not mean buying a car. I mean buying productive, income-generating assets. You take just $10 a day, just $10, and you ruthlessly, consistently inject it into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. You completely ignore the financial news cycle. You ignore the flashy crypto scams. You just quietly buy a tiny piece of the American economy every single day, and you let it grow in the background. You are packing your own snowball. It will look incredibly small at first. It will look pathetic compared to the fake wealth on Instagram, but you must trust the cold, hard math. Stage 3 is freedom. This is the monumental tipping point where the productive assets you accumulated finally generate enough passive cash flow to completely cover your basic survival needs. This is the definition of escape velocity. The exact moment this mathematical threshold is crossed, you have successfully broken the gravitational pull of the system. You no longer have to beg an employer to buy your time just so you can stay alive. You have ultimate options. You have ultimate dignity. Now let us review the entire blueprint of the poverty loop. We exposed the scarcity tax that steals your intelligence. We dismantled the dopamine trap that steals your capital. We broke down the linear income trap that mathematically limits your life. We revealed the social gravity of the crabs trying to pull you down. And we analyzed the compound void, the ultimate divider between the rich and the poor. These are the 5 heavy chains that bind the working class to the floor. But you must remember this final truth. These chains might be made of economic metal, but they are entirely forged in your own mind. The door to the cage is wide open. It has literally always been open. The massive corporate system wants you to stay inside and keep consuming. Your unmotivated friends want you to stay inside so they don't feel bad about themselves. Your own internal fear and exhaustion want you to stay inside where it is familiar. But you now have the laws of physics on your side. You have the exact map to the exit. You just need the raw courage to stand up, ignore the noise, and walk out. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.